The woman everyone underestimated. My son never knew the truth about me. To him, I was just an ordinary woman, someone who left home early every morning, came back tired in the evening, cooked simple meals, and lived quietly, without asking for much. He thought I worked a basic office job, maybe filing papers or answering emails, and I let him believe that. For more than 20 years, I never once told my son that I earned over $40,000 every single month. I never told him that I was a senior executive in a multinational company, signing contracts worth millions and making decisions that affected thousands of employees across multiple countries. Not because I was ashamed, but because I never believed money should define love, respect, or dignity. I grew up believing that true strength doesn't announce itself. Real power stays silent and watches. So I lived simply. Same small apartment for years, same old handbag until it fell apart, discount clothes, home-cooked food. I invested quietly and stayed invisible by choice. And everything was peaceful until my son called me one Tuesday afternoon. His voice sounded uneasy, the same way it did when he was a child and had broken something expensive. "Mom, I need to ask you something," he said carefully. He explained that his wife's parents were visiting from overseas for the first time. They wanted to meet me. They had planned a dinner at a very upscale restaurant downtown. Then he hesitated. "I told them you're simple," he admitted. "You work in an office, you live alone, you don't have much." That word, simple, sat heavy in my chest. Not because it was false, but because of what it meant to him. It meant embarrassing. It meant less than. It meant something to apologize for. I stayed calm and agreed to come. After the call ended, I looked around my modest living room. Nothing flashy, nothing impressive. And in that quiet moment, I made a decision. If my son believed I was poor, if his wife's family was prepared to judge me, then I would give them exactly what they expected. I decided to attend the dinner pretending to be broke, naive, and powerless. Not out of revenge, but out of curiosity. I wanted to see how they treated someone they believed had nothing. Saturday night arrived. I wore the oldest, most shapeless dress I owned. No jewelry, no watch, worn-out shoes. I tied my hair back carelessly and grabbed a faded canvas bag. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. I looked like someone life had overlooked. Perfect. The taxi dropped me in front of one of the most expensive restaurants in the city. Golden lights, well-dressed guests, a doorman in white gloves. As I stepped inside, my heart felt strangely heavy. Part of me hoped I was wrong, hoped they would be kind, hoped money wouldn't matter. But another part of me, the part shaped by decades of corporate boardrooms, already knew the truth. And when I saw the way my daughter-in-law's parents looked at me that night, I realized this dinner was about to change everything. And what happened next, no one at that table was prepared for. The table where judgment sat first. The moment I stepped closer to the table, I felt it. Not warmth, not curiosity, judgment. My son stood up first. He looked sharp in his suit, nervous eyes scanning my wrinkled dress as if hoping no one else would notice. His wife stood beside him, polished and flawless, but her smile was tight, forced. Then I saw her parents. They looked like they belonged in a luxury magazine. Her mother wore a shimmering emerald dress, diamonds resting casually against her skin. Her father sat upright in a perfectly tailored suit, a massive watch gleaming on his wrist. They didn't stand when I approached. They didn't smile either. "This is my mother," my daughter-in-law said quickly, her tone polite but distant, as if she were introducing an obligation rather than family. Her mother looked at me up and down slowly, not openly rude, worse, cold, calculating. She offered her hand without rising from her seat. "A pleasure," she said, though her eyes said otherwise. I sat at the far end of the table, unnoticed, unassisted. No one pulled out my chair. No one asked if I was comfortable. The waiter arrived with heavy menus written in elegant script. I pretended to struggle reading it. Her mother noticed immediately. "Oh," she said with a thin smile. "Do you need help? These menus can be confusing." "Yes, please," I replied softly. "I don't really understand these words." She sighed, not loudly but deliberately, and ordered for me without asking what I liked. "Something simple," she told the waiter. "Nothing expensive." The sentence lingered in the air. My son stared at his plate. His wife folded her napkin carefully. No one defended me. Conversation drifted to travel, hotels, shopping trips overseas. Every story carried a price tag carefully mentioned. "We stayed at a hotel that was nearly $1,000 a night," she said, watching my reaction. I nodded politely. "That's nice." She smiled, satisfied. Then came the questions. "So, what exactly do you do?" she asked sweetly. "I work in an office. Basic tasks. Paperwork. Nothing special." Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "Well, honest work is still work, right? Not everyone needs ambition." Her husband nodded. The food arrived. Tiny portions, extravagant presentation. She mentioned the price of her meal casually, as if it were common knowledge. "Quality costs," she said. "You can't expect much from cheap things." I smiled and ate quietly. Then the tone shifted. "Do you live alone?" she asked. "Yes." "That must be difficult, especially at your age. Does your income cover everything?" "I manage. I don't need much." She sighed dramatically. "You're very brave, but of course, every parent wishes they could give their children more." That was the moment. The subtle cut, the unspoken accusation. You weren't enough. My hands remained steady. My smile stayed small. But inside me, something hardened. Not anger, clarity. She wasn't curious about me. She wasn't concerned. She was measuring my worth. And when dessert arrived, she leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice, as if about to say something important. "You know," she said, "now that we're all family, there are some things we should discuss." My son stiffened. I looked up slowly. "Yes," I said calmly. She smiled, a smile that carried confidence, control, and something else, something dangerous. And that is when I realized this dinner was never about meeting me. It was about deciding where I belonged.
The offer disguised as kindness. The atmosphere at the table shifted the moment her mother folded her napkin and cleared her throat. "This might feel a little uncomfortable," she said gently, "but families should be able to speak openly, don't you agree?" My son shifted in his chair. "Mom, maybe we can talk about this later," he said. She raised a hand without looking at him. "It's important," she replied, "and it comes from a place of care." She turned her attention back to me, her expression soft, rehearsed. "You raised your son alone," she began. "That couldn't have been easy. I respect that." I nodded quietly. "But now he's married," she continued. "He has responsibilities, a future to build, and as parents, we worry." I waited. She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. "When a parent struggles financially," she said, "children often feel obligated. They worry. They carry stress that can harm a marriage." My son's jaw tightened. "I don't see my mother as a burden," he said firmly. Her smile didn't fade. "Of course not," she replied. "You're a good son. That's exactly the problem." Silence fell over the table. She took a slow breath. "That's why we were thinking," she continued, "that perhaps we could help." "Help how?" I asked softly. She exchanged a glance with her husband before speaking again. A small monthly amount, she said, just enough so you wouldn't struggle, so Marcus wouldn't feel the need to worry. Her husband nodded. Nothing excessive, just practical support. I tilted my head slightly. And what would you expect in return? I asked softly. Her smile tightened. Only space, she said. We believe young couples need freedom, fewer obligations, less pressure. The words landed exactly where they were meant to. Space. Distance. Silence. She wasn't offering help. She was offering to buy my absence. My daughter-in-law stared at her plate. My son's fists were clenched beneath the table. And how much is this support? I asked calmly. She hesitated just a second. 500, she said. Maybe 700 a month. I nodded slowly. $700 to step out of my son's life. I said, that's very generous. Her shoulders relaxed, relieved. I'm glad you understand. But I wasn't finished. I leaned forward slightly. May I ask something? I said. Of course. I continued. You said you helped my son and your daughter when they married. How much was that help? Her chest lifted with pride. $40,000 for the house and the honeymoon, about $15,000. So $55,000 total, I repeated. Yes, when you love your children, you don't hold back. I smiled. You're absolutely right. Then I looked her directly in the eyes. But tell me, did that money buy you love or obedience? Her smile vanished. I don't appreciate your tone, she said sharply. And I don't appreciate being priced, I replied, my voice steady. The table went silent. I straightened in my chair. You've spent this entire evening talking about costs, prices, and status, but you never once asked me if I was happy or lonely or even comfortable. She opened her mouth to speak. I know, I said gently, because to you I was already measured, and apparently I'm worth $700 a month. My son looked at me stunned. Her husband cleared his throat. You're misinterpreting her intentions. No, I said calmly. I'm finally understanding them. I took a slow sip of water and placed the glass down. And since we're being honest, I added, I think it's time I stop pretending. Every eye at the table locked onto mine, because the woman they thought was small was done being silent. The truth they never expected. When I said I was done pretending, the table froze. Her mother's confident posture stiffened. Her father leaned back slightly, studying me as if reassessing a puzzle that no longer fit its frame. My son stared, confused, his eyes searching my face for answers. Pretending? She asked cautiously. I nodded. Yes, I said. Pretending to be small, pretending to be powerless, pretending that your words didn't matter. She let out a short, nervous laugh. Well, I think we've all been a little tense tonight. No, I replied calmly. You've been comfortable. There's a difference. I turned to my son. Marcus, I said gently, there's something I never told you. His brow furrowed. Mom? I never told you what I really do for a living, or how much I earn. The color drained from his face. Her father scoffed quietly. And what exactly is that? He asked quietly. I met his gaze without blinking. I'm a regional operations director for a multinational firm. I oversee multiple countries. I manage budgets larger than most private companies. Her mother stared at me. That's unlikely, she said. I earn just over $40,000 every month, and I've earned that for nearly 2 decades. Silence. Not awkward silence, shocked silence. My son's fork slipped from his plate and hit the plate. That's not possible, he whispered. "Mom, why didn't you ever tell me?" "Because you didn't need to know," I said softly. "I wanted you to grow without money shaping your values." Her mother's lips parted, then closed again. "You expect us to believe this?" she asked. I reached into my worn canvas bag. Not dramatically, not angrily, just calmly. I placed a black card on the table, my name engraved in silver beneath it. Her father's eyes widened first. Her mother followed. "That card," she murmured. "Yes," I replied. "Corporate. Unlimited." I didn't smile. I live simply because I choose to, because wealth doesn't need decoration, because power doesn't need noise. My son leaned back in his chair, stunned. "All those years," he said quietly. "I wanted you to value effort," I replied, "not inheritance." Her mother stood up abruptly. "This is manipulation," she snapped. "You deceived us." "I observed you," I corrected, "and you showed me exactly who you are." Her father crossed his arms. "So what was the purpose of this little performance?" he asked coldly. "To answer one question," I replied. "How do you treat someone when you think they have nothing?" No one spoke. I continued. "You mocked my clothes, measured my worth, offered me money to disappear from my son's life." Her mother clenched her jaw. "We were trying to protect our daughter." "By humiliating me?" I asked. "By suggesting I was a burden?" She didn't answer. I turned to my daughter-in-law. "You didn't say anything," I said gently. Tears welled in her eyes. "I didn't know what to do," she whispered. "I know," I replied, "but silence is also a choice." The waiter approached cautiously. "Would you like the bill?" Her father nodded sharply. "Yes." He placed a gold credit card on the table. Moments passed. The waiter returned. "I'm sorry, sir," he said quietly. "The card was declined." Her mother froze. "That's impossible," she snapped. The waiter tried again. Declined. Her father stood up furious and stormed outside to make a call. I reached into my bag once more. This time I placed another card on the table, heavy, metallic, unmistakable. Her mother's eyes widened in disbelief. "Is that?" "Yes," I said. "Centurion." I handed it to the waiter. "Please cover everything," I said calmly, "and add a generous tip." The waiter nodded and walked away. I stood up, adjusting my old coat. "Dinner was enlightening. Thank you." Her mother stared at me, trembling, not with anger, with fear, because for the first time that night, she realized that she had misjudged the wrong woman.
Power changes the room. The restaurant felt different once the truth was out, not because the lights changed or the music stopped, but because control had shifted. The confidence that once filled my daughter-in-law's parents drained quietly from their faces, replaced by something far more uncomfortable: uncertainty. Her mother sat frozen, hands clasped tightly together. Her father returned from outside, phone still in his hand, his expression strained. He avoided my eyes completely. The waiter returned with the receipt and placed it gently in front of me. "Everything has been taken care of, ma'am," he said respectfully. I nodded. "Thank you." That single word, ma'am, seemed to echo. My son looked at me like he was seeing a stranger and his mother at the same time. "Mom," he said softly, "I don't understand." "You will, just not tonight." Her mother finally found her voice. "So this is it?" she asked bitterly. "You humiliate us, then leave?" "I didn't humiliate you," I said calmly. "You humiliated yourselves long before I spoke." She stood up abruptly. "You could have told us from the beginning," she snapped. "And you could have been kind from the beginning," I replied. "We all made choices."
Her father exhaled sharply. "This changes nothing," he said carefully. "Our concern was always our daughter's future." I turned to him fully. "Then let me be clear," I said. "I have never asked my son for money. I have never depended on him, and I never will." My voice remained steady. "But I will not be pushed aside like an inconvenience, not by anyone." My daughter-in-law finally looked up at me, tears streaking her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I should have said something." I walked closer and placed a hand gently over hers. "Apologies matter most when they change behavior. I hope yours does." My son stood. "Mom, I should have defended you," his voice shaking. "I thought keeping the peace mattered more." I looked at him, really looked at him. Peace built on silence isn't peace, it's surrender. He nodded slowly. Her mother scoffed. "You're tearing this family apart," she said. "No," I replied. "I'm refusing to let it be built on disrespect." I picked up my bag. "At some point," I continued, "everyone in this world learns the same lesson." They watched me carefully. "Never judge someone by how quietly they live. Some people don't need to announce their strength." I turned to leave. My son followed me a few steps outside the restaurant. "Mom," he called out. I stopped. "Are you angry?" I shook my head. "No," I said. "I'm awake." He swallowed hard. "Will you forgive them?" I paused. "Forgiveness isn't the same as access. Trust has to be rebuilt." He nodded, understanding more than he ever had before. As I walked toward my car, I felt lighter, not because I had proven anything, but because I no longer had to carry silence. Behind me, inside that elegant restaurant, conversations were happening that would never be the same again. And I knew one thing for certain. This story wasn't over. Not yet. Because power doesn't end with revelation. It ends with boundaries. Strength that needs no applause. The weeks after that dinner were quiet. No dramatic phone calls, no apologies wrapped in expensive words, just silence. And for the first time in years, I welcomed it. My son called me a few days later. His voice was different, more slower, more careful. "I've been thinking a lot," he said, "about everything." I listened. "I realized I spent my whole life protecting other people's comfort, and I forgot to protect you. That mattered more than any apology his in-laws could offer. I didn't raise you to choose sides. I raised you to choose what's right." He exhaled softly. "They want to meet again, to talk." "Do you?" I asked. There was a pause. "Yes," he said, "but this time on equal ground." We met at a quiet cafe weeks later. No luxury, no performance, just 4 people at a small wooden table. Her parents looked different. Not smaller, just stripped of armor. Her mother spoke first. "We were wrong," she said stiffly. "We judged you." I nodded. "I know." She hesitated. "We thought money meant control, security. And I thought silence meant peace. We were both mistaken." Her father cleared his throat. "You embarrassed us that night," he said carefully. "No," I said calmly. "You embarrassed yourselves long before I spoke." The truth settled between us. Then something unexpected happened. They didn't defend themselves. They didn't argue. They listened. And that was enough. I didn't need apologies dressed as speeches. I didn't need respect built on fear or wealth. I needed boundaries. "I won't interfere in your lives, and I won't be excluded from my son's." They nodded. My daughter-in-law reached for my hand.
"We want us to start over," she said quietly. "So do I, but differently." After that day, things changed, slowly, imperfectly, honestly. They stopped trying to impress, I stopped pretending, and my son finally learned that strength doesn't always look loud. Months later, he visited my apartment for the first time without embarrassment. He noticed how peaceful it was, how little I needed. "You could live anywhere," he said softly. "I already do. I live where I'm respected." He smiled. "Sometimes I still wear old clothes. Sometimes I still take taxis instead of drivers. Sometimes people still underestimate me. And I let them. Because I've learned a valuable lesson. The world is quick to measure worth by noise. Money spoken, labels worn, power displayed. But the strongest people don't announce who they are. They wait. They watch. And when the moment comes, they stand quietly, set their boundaries, and walk away without needing applause. If there's one lesson I hope my son carries forward, it's this. Never confuse simplicity with weakness. Never mistake silence for absence. And never assume you know someone's story just because they chose not to tell it. Because the most powerful truths are often revealed only when respect is missing.